Hello students, in today's class we will study what news is. So before going into definition, you must know what fake news is first. So there are three types of fake news. They are fabrication, hoax and satire. So what is this fabrication? Fabrication is nothing but an intentional lie that does not usually go beyond one particular source. So the source is probably aware that the story is false. Narrating a false story, fabricating a false story is fabrication. And hoax is nothing but fooling the readers, fooling the public. So uses more, that is hoax news, uses more sophisticated methods of fooling an audience. We can even take advertisements, for example, like forged evidence or social media manipulation. And they are often spread by multiple sources, by print media, television, social media, so some of which may believe the story is true. And the last one, fake news, is satire. So satire is a false news story that the source presents as true as a joke. So the news will present, or we might assume that the joke is true. So when satire is shared with people that aren't familiar with the source, there is always a chance someone will think it is real. So these are three types of fake news, and now we are moving into news. So what is news? See, it has been described as a report of recent or current event that has an impact on society or a previously unknown information. So a news should definitely or certainly, it must have an impact on society. And what is a recent report should be described, should be narrated in a news story. And I have listed some of the common popular definitions of news. So what is news? News is something revealed. And what is new is news. And it could be north, east, west, south. So it could be NEWS, could be also an acronym. The expansion of this NEWS is north, east, west, south. The meaning is it comes from, news comes from all the directions. So what comes from that makes news. And the next definition is, news is any event that affects large number of people. This is the most popular definition. News is any event that affects large number of people. And see, as we know, many incidents or events are occurring every day across the globe. But most of them are not becoming news the next day. Why? Why most of them are not becoming news the next day? Why? What is the reason? Because so there are some criteria that makes news or that makes an event news. So now we are going to study what are those criteria. See, we are going to see criteria of news. The criteria by which news is judged. So how a news is judged? So first is it new? So this is the question that comes into a reporter's mind. Is that new? And second question is it unusual? Next is it interesting or significant? The last question is it about people? So we'll now see all these four one by one in detail. So the first one, what is the first one? Is it new? See, news is, as we studied now, something it should be new, and also it should be interesting, unusual, and which should involve people. So this is the definition of news. So what are the four criteria? New, it should be new, interesting, unusual, and it should involve people. Now look at this picture. Just see what is given here. This is Aiden. Okay, this little boy, his name is Aiden. He's just 5 years old. And this little boy, Aiden, 5 years old boy, he looks after his mom. But who is looking after him? It's a question. So this little boy, Aiden, 5 years old boy, he is looking after his mom, but who is looking after him? Stolen childhood. So if you see in this picture, you'll find something new because he is just a 5 years old boy who is looking after his mom. So this is something new. This is interesting also. It is unusual too, and it involves people. So this is news. And we'll go into the first one now. So what is news? It should be something new. So the question is it new? So before reporting or before writing or before publishing the news in newspaper, the question that must come into your mind is that new? Is the particular event or incident, is that new? If it is not new, it cannot be news. So this is the first point. If it is not new, it cannot be news then. For example, see the assassination of assassination of Mrs. Gandhi is unusual, and that is interesting too, significant, and it involves people. But it cannot possibly be reported in tomorrow's papers because it is not new. Understand? Mrs. Gandhi's assassination cannot be reported in tomorrow's newspaper because it is not new, but it is something unusual, interesting, and significant. But at the same time, if some facts about that assassination became known for the first time, however, that would be news. If you are going to get more facts related to that murder, that would be news. So the assassination would be new, but the information would be not new. Instead, would be added. So this is the first question. Is it new? The next, second question, is it unusual? So is the news unusual? Can it be printed in tomorrow's newspaper? So this is the second point. See, things are happening all the time around us. Many things are happening around us. But not all of them are news, isn't it? We cannot report everything that happen around us. All of them are not news. So even when they are new, even when the incidents or events are new, you cannot report everything that happens around you. For example, see, a man wakes up, eats breakfast, and goes to work on a bus. This is something, is it something strange? No, there is nothing unusual in this incident. I am reading out the example again. See, a man wakes up, eats breakfast, and goes to work on a bus. Something happens every day, everywhere. Usual thing. It has only just happened. Understand? This is only happening. But nobody wants to read about it because it is not unusual. Ordinary and everyday things do not make news. So that is the second point that you must learn. Ordinary and everyday things do not make news. So next question that comes into your mind is, what makes news then? So what is unusual? Okay, what is unusual? Unusual is if that same man was 90 years old. Understand? So if the same man is 90 years old and was still catching the bus to work every day, that incident could be unusual. So here, this is a man. Instead of a man, if you are going to write a 90 years old man wakes up, eats breakfast and goes to work on bus, this is something unusual. This is what you have to look for. So let us see the third one. Is it interesting? So the news, that should be interesting because you need readers or the public to read the news. So is it interesting? Events which are new and unusual may still not be of general interest. Even if it is unusual or new, people will not show much interest, or readers will not show much interest to read that news, because it is something which something happens generally. For example, scientists may report that an insect has just been found living on a plant which it did not previously inhabit. Okay, they had seen some strange insect living on a plant. So the discovery is something new, because it's a new insect which they have not seen before, and the event is also unusual. But it is unlikely to interest anybody other than a specialist or enthusiast. Understand? Only a scientist will have interest in reading such stories, though the news is new or is unusual. But at the same time, if the same insect was one which had a huge appetite and which had previously lived on and eaten bush grass, and if the new plant on which it had been found was rice, so then the story becomes news, because it is significant, it is something important which you cannot discard or which you cannot dispense, is something significant. And the last one is it about people? We show interest only to read about people. What happens to our people? What happens to the man who met with an accident? Okay, so is it about people? Because most news is automatically about people, because it is the things people do to change the world which makes news. However, news can also be made by non-human sources. So what are those non-human sources? Non-human sources such as cyclone, a bushfire, a drought, a volcanic eruption, or an earthquake. So these also can interest readers. It is when reporting these stories that it is important to make sure that the story is centered on people. So now we are in this pandemic, and in the initial stage we showed much interest to know about the disease, but now we want to know how many are infected in our state, isn't it? We want to know how many are suffering, how many are infected. So make sure that the story is centered on people. So all these natural disasters only become news when they affect people's lives. We are so much bothered, we are worried about this coronavirus because it affects people's life. Otherwise, we will never think about the disease. So all natural disasters only become news when they affect people's lives. So the term news, what does the term news mean? The term news is relatively a recent origin. So it appeared as, origin, we are studying the origin of news. In the beginning, it appeared as news in the year 1423. And later, a change appeared, and the spelling was, it is spelled like, N-E-W-Y-E-S, news, in 1485. Then, in 1523, news. But only after 1550, it became news. So this word started to be used commonly among people only in the year 1550. So the concept of journalism is closely related to daily activities today. As I said, definition of news is varied from one to another when people become different. News can be categorized as personal news and social news. In olden days, people gather in markets and they talk and share feelings and experiences. So such exchanges of news can be called personal news. So what is social news then? Socially relevant news, that is only facts reported in a detached manner, is social news. That is in personal news, if you see, local markets were the important distributors of news once. So people assemble in local markets to exchange goods, and they share their personal stories. So